In this podcast, let's talk about all about the Holy Spirit. Well, we could also say another way of looking at the world, and maybe to explain what really is the Holy Spirit. And let's talk a little bit about meditation and spirituality and the mind of Christ, the Holy Spirit, and you. You know, Hey everyone, welcome to this week's podcast. This is James Nussbaumer, and it is the day after Christmas. And I had a really nice Christmas with my great friend, and I'm recording this now on December 26th, 2017, and from sunny Florida. And this is going to be recorded and posted at my website and at YouTube. And for those of you that really don't know me or maybe listening to this for the first time, if you decide that you're liking what I have to say here, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is right around here somewhere if you're at YouTube right now. And if you're at my website, in the header above, in the footer below, is a YouTube icon with my smiling face. I don't know if I really like that picture or not. I think I've changed since then, but there's a YouTube thing, an icon right next to that, and you can click on that. And by the way, also follow me on Twitter, Google Plus, and Facebook. But understanding the Holy Spirit, another way of looking at the world. Many people, don't you think, have confusion about understanding the Holy Spirit? What I mean is, let's say in a discussion at a recent webinar that I had about the true power of our mind, about our subconscious mind, not our brain, the mind. And for those of you that have read my books, which are at my website, and for those of you that know more about me will know that, the harshest of conditions imaginable ever where I had written those books by hand. So it was kind of like, I guess you could compare that to like a caveman scribing on the walls of his cave. It's kind of the way I felt, when I was writing all this down in prison. And for 8 long years, I did it every day, by the way, for those of you that know me. But what I'm saying is the true power of the mind and all concepts, all about the Holy Spirit. Some had stated, when I consider the Christ, I think about the divine Spirit of God. Well, that is profound because I like that. And that's really what it is. Let's don't look at Christ as an individual human being. Isn't that what Jesus was here to inform us and bring the Christ mind to us in this dream of life, this dream of time and space in material form while we're here, so to speak, I guess you could say, in exile from our real home, our real divinity, which is in heaven, which is not somewhere out there. It's just within us. I think I had said that in a previous blog article and in my book too. It's kind of like, when Dorothy woke up in Kansas and all of a sudden she realized she was at home all along. She had just dreamed of being in Oz and the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain and all that kind of stuff. Anyways, I think you get the drift of where I'm at right now on this day after Christmas, which is Christmas is about giving and becoming whole, isn't it? Wholehearted, being one with each other. Others ask, can you please explain the Holy Spirit? And, so I may comprehend the distinction between the both. And I thank you both from Eleanor and Jerry Martin of a small area in the Netherlands that had messaged me and said, we understand, but can you please expand? We want to get closer to you and see what your explanation is what they had said in their lengthy message to me, which was on Facebook, tell me more about how you think about the Holy Spirit, because they're trying to touch with me. They feel the same way, and they're trying to get a connection with me. And so I'll go on with that. And so thank you, folks from the Netherlands. And please, anyone from around the world that you're listening to this podcast, please, at jamesnussbaumer.com, go to my contact page and leave a message as to what you would like me to talk about next week. But so let's answer that question. The deeper that you take the daily exercises that I prescribed in my second book of the ever-developing series, which is called Mastering Your Own Spiritual Freedom. That's the sequel to my first book, by the way. Mastering Your Own Spiritual Freedom, Lessons from A Course in Miracles, which, by the way, both books were handwritten from a prison cell where I'd spent 8 long years in a state prison in the state of Ohio. But so I'll repeat that. The deeper that you take the daily exercises that I prescribe in this book, the master of everything is the first book, and it's about the world of illusion that we call life. But that's what I'm getting here, that in Mastering Your Own Spiritual Freedom, Lessons from A Course in Miracles, we went on to discuss that there's another way of looking at the world, and I detailed a lengthy meditation that can be shortened or a long-term version depending on the mood that you're in, but it helps you the more in touch that you can be with understanding the Holy Spirit in your mind. And what I mean by that is, in another article at my blog, I went on to describe this a little bit more, about that you can start noticing the ego in you, which is that doubting Thomas in you, in us. That doubting Thomas, that fearful aspect and judgmental harping in our mind, which is the concrete thinking disguised for different situations. Realizing all about the Holy Spirit and you is why I urge you to seek out really some mindfulness meditation, and spiritually, and even yoga spirit, yoga healing, there's even yoga for weight loss that I endorse. But I want to also explain too, but before I go on, I want to say there's also another related article on yoga spirit at my blog, so please go there. But anyways, as I was saying, as you start recognizing the Holy Spirit within you, not outside of you, as you start recognizing the Holy Spirit in you as of yourself and in all that you do for a better life, you will also start to willingly undo the messages the ego-based mind gives you. The ego-based mind is that doubting Thomas aspect in you, that fearful, judgmental thing that's chirping in your mind saying, you can't do this. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're too fat. You're too little. You're too skinny. Whatever it is. I think you get my drift there, don't you? So, that's the ego in us. And the ego is not going to go away as long as we're in this world. It's not going to go away because the ego is the body. So as long as we're in this world, we're going to have the ego in us. But we can make the ego take a back seat. Yes, we can make the ego take the back seat, and we can that's when all about the Holy Spirit comes through. We can let the Holy Spirit in us be the driver of the journey in this world, and let the ego sit in the back seat of the car. If the ego wants to put on his seatbelt, he can, whatever. Remember the old days that I remember growing up in, the 60s and as a kid, and hell, we didn't have seatbelts back then. Look how we've grown, in this country. I can remember driving into a drive-through as a maybe 6 or 7 years of sex, maybe 5 or 6 years old, something like, sitting on a box that my dad was, wanting to exchange out, and they put that box back in under me, which was a case of beer. Nobody wore seatbelts then, and their kids stood up in the car. But anyways, you know what I'm saying if you're old enough to think back to that. But if you're younger and You can't even comprehend it. You're like, oh my God, really? That happened back then? But all about the Holy Spirit. For example, the obnoxious man, say, behind you in the line at the post office, like I talked about in another article. And, within a moment or two, you're understanding that the Holy Spirit is simply just, telling you to observe that someone else is just having a bad day because that ego is getting in the way. Let's say that there's that hostility that's so bad that, you just can't, you just can't give up on something that's haunting you. You got to find yourself simply and quietly leaving that mess that you were in line at the post office and, for another time. Maybe when you get in your car after you're all upset and you left the post office, you waited in line all that time, and you might just, before you even turn the ignition on in your car, you might want to just say something like, take a couple deep breaths in and out and relax and say, there's another way of looking at the world. I hope that makes sense as we go on. But, this is understanding the Holy Spirit in you rather than the ego. When you say to yourself, there must be another way of looking at the world. Or if you're desperate, you can say, please, Holy Spirit, my true inner self, show me that there's another way, a better way of looking at the world. And it will be done. And understanding the Holy Spirit can be seen or experienced around the world as the calmness that does not push you to get your goals achieved. It doesn't put a rush on the task at hand. It doesn't put deadlines on, you got to meet this goal by this kind of a deadline or else you're a loser. No, the Holy Spirit doesn't do that. Doesn't put demands on you, while realizing that, nobody really likes standing in line at the post office anyway. So think about that, if that kind of is parallel, and that, you can kind of hear me. Sometimes a lot of people think that I'm a little complicated to understand because I might, in certain areas, be kind of all over the place, but I'm really hitting home on the same message if you really sit and listen to me. But as I talk about the Christ in you, I'm not saying Jesus Christ. I'm saying as I talk about the Christ in you and all about the Holy Spirit, I'm not meaning in your body, but I do mean in you. And when I say talk about the Christ in you, I'm talking about the Christ that Jesus, who entered the dream of separation of time, space, and material form, entered our dream, which we see as 2,000 some years ago. He came here to tell us about this. Of course, in those days, things weren't, there was no new age stuff going on then. So nobody could, really, in those days, Jesus, who was so smart, had to be careful how he talked to the local people, and still got him in trouble. But, the Christ in you is not outside of yourself. Anything physical about your body, all right, including your internal organs, and even the cells and the atoms are outside of who you are. The smallest molecule in your body is a part of your flesh and bones. These microscopic body parts are your physical body, which is the framework for who you are. Just as the sun is the center of our physical solar system, I had talked about in a previous podcast, and someone had wanted me to expand on this again. But, by now, I hope that you are focused on the fact that, you just can't separate. You just cannot be separate. You can't separate yourself from what is at the center of who you really are. I mean, of who you truly are. You ever think about who you truly are? I don't mean your body. I mean, do you think that when you leave this world and you die, which is in an instant, there's, just instant, you leave, you transition out of here, do you think that your body is just really all you are? Nah, I don't think you think that, because you wouldn't be listening to me so far here. But what gives you life cannot be centered around death. You know, your body, your cells and atoms and everything included is going to die one day, but you are not going to die. Your holiness is not your flesh and bones, but your holiness is who you are. Holiness. Your divinity is who you are. This is Christ, and all about the Holy Spirit, who while we're here in this world is here to deliver us that message. It's the Spirit in you. The Christ in you is what you will never. The Christ in you is the part of you that will never die. It's the whole, WHOLE, part of you that will never die. So to explain the Holy Spirit and you, consider the abstract essence about you, but maybe you whispering, maybe something that's whispering to you in the back of your mind, or you're talking to yourself, so to speak, something whispering in the back of your mind that you do truly know that this world is not your real home, with a capital H. Just like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, she knew that Oz wasn't her real home. But then she woke up at Kansas, back in Kansas, and she realized Oz was just a dream. She never left Kansas. You know, your body is merely a temporary structure, a communication device for understanding the Holy Spirit, who is you, and he uses the body for guiding you while in this world. You know, now back about that deal with Dorothy waking up in Kansas. You can't put focus on the body. I try to parallel this with the mind and not your body. I'm just using the Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz deal as a thing for you to relate to, for your ego to relate to, because the ego is the body. And then from there, you can maybe spiritually pick up on what I'm trying to say. The Holy Spirit and you is nothing more, nothing doubtful or judgmental, and nothing fearful for you to ever worry about. You know, all of this wrapped up together, the Holy Spirit, without doubting anything or judging anything, that is your holiness. That is what you are really about. And that is the Holy Spirit as you, with a capital Y, Y-O-U, a capital U, a divine you, as the real you. You know, with that said, and I hope this makes sense, and who and what you are is at one with Christ, whose purpose is to make manifest or to be seen through you by those who don't know that Christ exists. Many people don't, really understand that Christ exists within all of us. And that's what Jesus was really here to teach us. He didn't come here to teach us that he was the Son of God and we're not. He came here to teach us that we are all connected together as one. And we will all resurrect like he did, but not as a body floating up through the sky, through the clouds to heaven. No. When the dream of separation, when the dream of time, life, form, the dream of everything around us here in the world is gone, it will happen when the ego in us, which is now slowly fading away, but when it's totally obliterated. But it won't happen in an instant. It won't happen in a abrupt sort of way instant, because the only way to awaken from the dream of separation is to awaken in peace. So it will slowly happen. So as we are in this world in the dream of form and time and space, which is just a dream, we're not going to abruptly be awakened from the dream, because no, heaven's not about abruptness. Our true home is not about waking up scared from a nightmare. Our true home in heaven is like how Dorothy woke up from Kansas, peaceful, so glad to be back at home with everyone there around her and surrounding her. So correlate that and parallel that to how our whole mind is. And that's how we will awaken from the dream of separation and the world will end. That will be the end of time. Doesn't that sound kind of nice? Because no, the world will never end with a cosmic convulsion or some kind of nuclear attack. No, if there's a nuclear thing that comes down here and destroys all of us, life is still going to be here. Some little cell, something physical, some cell or atom is still going to be alive. So the only way out of this world is when we all come together in peace, world peace, and we come together as being whole. And we're gradually moving toward that as being whole. And when we become completely whole all the way, there will be no ego. And it will be that one last fragment of ego that fades away. And when that happens, we will awaken like Dorothy did in Kansas. Oh, I'm glad to be home around everyone that she loved. I hope that makes sense. And I want to say Merry Christmas to you. I want to say Happy Hanukkah. I want to say Happy Holidays to whatever it is that you are celebrating through this holiday giving season. And just be open to anything and keep your mind on success for yourself and helping others who are down and are struggling. I mean, don't you see a reason to help people that are struggling? You know, I also want to make sure that you join me on Twitter, join me on Facebook. And I want to, I get I got a regular page a regular thing at Facebook, and then I got my author page. So join me, like me on my author page and join me on my regular site too. And I think I got 5,000, that's the maximum on your normal page. But, sign up anyway, and I could, there's always people that fallen off because they don't agree with my philosophy or whatever, and I'll put you in their spot. But also keep in mind that the world needs you to be extending your natural self so we can move closer to wholeness and get closer to world peace and making a reality that really is the reality we want to live in. Hey, I hope that made sense. Join me next week. Again, always at my website, jamesnussbaumer.com. I have a podcast page. I list them all there. Even ones I've made a while ago, you can go back and click on them and replay it. Hope this made sense. And leave me a message, please. Give me some input at the contact page of my website. I got to go now. God bless and Happy New Year.